Minecraft's Spring to Life update has arrived. Mob and biome changes can be seen across the game, so come with me and discover 20 huge 1.21.5 updates. A lot of things have been given a visual upgrade inside of this update, and that includes the pig. You can see here, this isn't the normal pig texture, it's the cold pig, with this fluffy and furry appearance to keep it warm in this cold weather. Though there's still the standard pig that spawns inside of temperate biomes, such as this forest or the plains. However, also we have the orange warm pig that spawns in warm biomes, this jungle for an example, and this pig has a darker orange appearance with a bristly back, and it reminds me somewhat of the hoglin. And if a pig theoretically spawned in the nether, it would spawn in as a warm pig. Or if a pig theoretically could spawn in the end, it will spawn in as a cold pig, which is a pretty cool Easter egg to show the temperature of those biomes. The two newest wood types in the game, cherry wood and pale oak, both their leaf types were added to have particles with them. So the cherry leaves in 1.20 had the pink petals, and the pale oak leaves have leaves that come off of them that look like this. And this exact leaf particle that was added with the pale oak in 1.21.4 has been added to every single tree type in the game. You can see here, for example, these leaves coming off of this spruce tree. And so whatever type of forest biome you're in, you're going to see these awesome leaf particles falling from all the leaf blocks. And this is a feature I think Minecraft has needed for a very long time. It's amazing to see it in the game, and will provide a lot of great building opportunities. And it does do it based on whatever the localized color is. So putting down these oak leaves, they're gonna have gray leaves coming off of them, even though in most biomes they would be green. The wooded Badlands was added to Minecraft a long time ago, and this biome is very rarely settled by players. However, Mojang has done one change to make this more common. That is, to make it so that farm animals are able to spawn inside of this biome. So if you're thinking of a place to settle and you're near a mesa or desert, this might be a good choice. Although be warned, the grass color is kind of swamp-like, and there's a lot of coarse dirt here. However, and the leaf litter also now generates inside of this biome. So with all of these upgrades, this biome is a great new place to check out. There are quite a few new plants inside of this update, and one basic one that's found in the plains biome, as well as the standard forest and birch forest, is the bush. Now the bush is very similar to the short grass in terms of its functionality, and you do need shears to pick it up. So it's the same as that as well. They will generate next to rivers and frozen rivers, so you'll find these more lush items near the source of water, which makes a lot of sense. And the bushes will change color based on what biome they're in. So although they very unfortunately do not spawn inside of the sparse jungle or the standard jungle, which I definitely think they should, if you place them inside of a biome with very green grass like this, you can see these really green interesting bush items appear. But this example of the bush's color can be seen best inside of the Mushroom Island, as we have this very stark contrast with an incredibly green bush. Wandering traders, of course popping up sometimes in your world, are not a favorite mob of many players, as they only will really sometimes try and sell you some sort of varieties of blocks from around the world. However, now they'll also buy items from you. You can sell hay bales to them, one hay bale for an emerald, or you can sell water buckets to them like this if you want. The wandering trader needs some supplies. Let's say the hay bales are for food and the water is for the llamas maybe, and so that's why it's buying those items. However, as well as that, the wandering trader has become more useful because the number of items it sells in each category has also been increased. So for an example here, you can see I just bought 12 tulips. It used to be that you could only buy 6 of each type of item that it sells. Even here with magenta dye giving you 3 for an emerald, I just got 36 here. This update also allows players to experience a bit more of the last update, 1.21.4, as it makes the pale garden generate much more commonly and much larger. As well as that, it enables the woodland mansion to be able to spawn inside of this biome. And it would be pretty cool if one day they added a pale wood version of the woodland mansion if it ends up spawning in the pale garden biome. So it's definitely upgraded this biome quite a bit and increased the lore of there being resin inside of the woodland mansion. More farmyard mobs have been changed. And in a particularly delicious change, we now have hot chicken in the game. Well, at least we have a hot variety of the chicken that spawns inside of warm biomes. This chicken has a really interesting texture with a much darker beak, with orange striped feathers, and I would say this variety of the chicken does actually resemble a lot of types of chickens I've seen, much more than the white variety. So if you want some extra spicy chicken, you can go for this one, but if you wanted more of a turkey aesthetic, so if you like hot and spicy chicken, you could go with this one. Or in the cold biomes, we have the somewhat turkey-like chicken here, that has this large plumage going over its head, and a more 3D tail, and just overall sort of a grayish purple appearance. Now these mobs generate in any cold biome, and if you want to see the standard chickens as well, they do still spawn in any temperate biome. Flowers are some of my favorite ways of decorating in the game, and now we have some brand new types, but they have more uses than you might think. So for an example, with the wildflowers here, we can craft these into yellow dye. And this might not seem amazing, but if you consider the fact of how many of these flowers are on the ground, and the fact that each one of these can drop up to 4, it shows what a great source of dye this is. But it's not the only new source of dye that's been added in the 1.21.5 update. No, actually in the desert, we have the beautiful new cactus flowers, and these almost amethyst crystal looking like blocks can be collected as well, and although they're a bit more rare, and pink dye is certainly fairly easy to get, if you do want some pink dye, you can take these cactus flowers and craft them one flower into a pink dye. So if you're playing Minecraft inside of the mesa or the desert, maybe make some cactus pink dye with the cactus flower. I would say one of the community favorite features from this update is the fact that the lodestone is now far cheaper to craft. You see, if I try and craft a lodestone with a netherite ingot, which is of course very expensive to get, it no longer works. Although that used to be the recipe just in the last update. However, now in an amazing change, we have lots of access to lodestones because the netherite has been replaced with a simple iron ingot. So right here you can see with 64 iron surrounded by these chiseled stone bricks, we can get ourselves a huge supply of lodestones. In fact, iron not being that hard to mine and just needing some stone for the other materials, lodestones have gone from one of the most expensive items in the game to one that is very easily accessible, and as well as that, it gives amazing opportunities for utilizing this beautiful texture, not only on the side of the block, but also on the top of it. With amazing white stone looking floors being possible, this update has a theme of adding new decorative features that change the entire appearance of the overworld. So now we're looking at the short and tall dry grass. This is a really big change in terms of the generation of the Badlands and the desert. As you can see here already, it's pretty easy to see little bits of this new dry grass. You can see the dry grass shows up pretty well on top of the red sand there. So now we see patches of that around, and as well as that, although it blends in better in the desert, there is a lot of it there as well. However, if we were to pick them up with shears, there is a small use for these random grasses around the world. Both the tall as well as the short dry grass can be used to smelt items. You can see here that although they do not provide a huge amount of fuel, they do work fairly effectively, and so because of that, if you want to, you can collect these up for fuel. Wolves have been receiving a lot of different upgrades across the last few updates in the game, and now we have a brand new one. Of course, we've had these new different color variants for a while. Now there's also sound variants. There are 6 different sound personalities that a wolf is randomly assigned when it's born, or spawned in. So you might be able to hear each one of these wolves is making different sounds from the other wolves. This is a smaller, more ambient effect. But it does mean that if you have a friendly collection of dogs, you're going to notice more personality and variance in them than just their colors. So always make sure to listen very carefully to what Dennis is telling you, and you might find out what sound variant type your wolf is. Also, this has literally nothing to do with what type of wolf it is. It's completely random and gives us a lot more wolf variants. You can't help but love bone meal in Minecraft. With such a large number of uses, it's a really good idea to find a good source of it. Now, one of those ways is by composting items, and there's a lot of new plant items that were added inside of this update. And what's interesting is that every single one of these plants actually composts to the same amount, which is a 30% chance of one compost layer. So we could compost the wildflowers, we could compost the leaf litter, we could compost firefly bushes, standard bushes, even the cactus flower can be composted. On top of that, despite it being very dry, the short dry grass as well as the tall dry grass can be composted as well. So every single new type of plant inside of this update has our 30% compost chance, and if you collect a lot, can be used for a great source of that. As an example, you could run around the forest grabbing leaf litter and turn that into some bone meal. Feast your eyes upon the brand new cow types that have been added inside of Minecraft 1.21.5. You can see right here we have the very fluffy new cold cow type. This cow also has very large prominent horns and is probably my new favorite cow type, as it's also just so cute with its swoosh of hair in the front and amazing 3D texture, and it even has hanging 3D elements. Oh, and don't worry, we still have the standard cow texture inside of our temperate biomes. Look at this, the amazing warm cow. This cow has even crazier horns than the cold cow, and it has a very bright red texture. Now this cow variant spawns in all warm biomes, and there's other interesting features to its texture as well, such as black hooves on it, and a more pinkish appearance to its legs and belly. Now if you want these cute new cow textures, be sure to go to warm biomes, find these mobs, and you can bring them back to your base. However, thinking of warm, cold, and temperate biomes and the divides between them, it makes you realize that there's a whole new system that's being introduced into the game here. You see, Minecraft's biomes have always, of course, been in somewhat of those categories, but it's now been cemented which biomes are temperate, which ones are warm, and which ones are cold. And this can easily be determined by which variant of cow, sheep, and pig generate in that biome. But this divide adds a whole nother question to where you're going to build your base in the game. What types of fauna and flora do you want to have around your base? Different variants of mobs and plants. Now that matters a lot more than it used to. In terms of having your base over here, or right across the river there, it could have a large effect on which mobs you see and where they spawn. And I'll get into warm, cold, and temperate separations in a different video later, but for now it's good to remember which type of biome you're in to determine what types of mobs you're gonna see. This update affects exploring a lot more than just warm and cold biome separations though. You see, the cartographer villagers have also been updated. If we trade with a cartographer villager, you can then see that it is selling new type of explorer maps that were never seen before. This includes the Swamp Explorer map, as well as the Taiga Explorer map. Now these different maps lead you to certain locations. For an example, the Swamp Explorer map leads you to a witch hut. A Taiga Village map leads you to a desert temple. No, it leads you to a Taiga Village. I think Mojang is trying to increase the use of the cartographer, as well as making it more viable for players that have access to tools like Chunkbase. And these Explorer maps work like all the other ones. You can see, for an example right there, we have a witch hut. Now on this Taiga Village map, you can see in the top left corner there is a little village house, and if we follow the map here, we can lead ourselves to the Taiga Village. Now, a change that not all players might find significant, but is honestly a feature I've been asking for years, and is probably my favorite thing they've done in this entire update. That is finally adding fallen logs to Java Edition. This great feature of adding some natural time to the landscape, with all the trees not just being perfect, is such a beautiful addition to the forests of the game. Now this can happen with birch or oak trees inside of the forest here, but it can happen in taigas as well, and sometimes these end up spawning just as tree trunks. Inside of the birch forest as well, we also have these fallen trees, and these ones are extra big, as the birch forest has pretty large birch trees in it. And it's really beautiful seeing after a long time of all these visual upgrades that have been promised to the game, to see this beautiful forest, these fallen trees, the flowers. This reminds me a lot of the birch forest update that was meant to be for 1.19. Now all the way out here to the Mooshroom Island, which I don't think has had its generation touched for a very long time, we do have one interesting feature that's been changed here, and that's with the mushrooms. You see, with the upgrade of the cows and their textures, the mushrooms also had their textures changed quite a bit and their model changed. You can notice here their nose is now sticking out of their face. This didn't used to be the way that cows looked, but it now is, and that feature has been retrofitted to the brown mooshroom and the red mooshroom, and especially around the feet there have been some texture rearrangements. So now if you bring these along, you could have 5 different cows in the game that are all in some way different from how they were before. You can even see here, interestingly enough, that the Mooshroom Island can sometimes support firefly bushes, so there's another small change that's been done to this biome. Look at these happy sheep in this jungle. You know, a feature in Bedrock Edition that has to do with this was just added to Java, and that's these ferns here. Sheep will now eat ferns. And I don't just mean like when they eat grass and it turns to dirt, I mean the fern itself will actually disappear. Alright, here we have a pen that is completely full of ferns and none of them have been eaten. Well, I did just say that, but these ferns are being quickly devoured. You can see that many of them are disappearing already, from these baby sheep eating them. In Bedrock at first, but in Java now too, we have this amazing feature of sheep going after and eating ferns. Funny enough, in real life, ferns aren't necessarily a good food for sheep, but in Minecraft, be aware that there's this interesting little feature of sheep having their own form of mob griefing, beyond turning grass blocks to dirt. Here we have 3 of the classic mob textures from the Temperate biome, and here we have 3 mobs in the warm biome with their warm textures. But what happens if you breed these mobs together? Well, let's breed the standard cow with the warm cow. Basically, it's a 50-50 chance of it being one parent or the other. This does not have to do with what biome it's in any way. So this being a temperate cow only has to do with the fact that it was a 50% chance from this cow. And this is the same for all the other mobs. So let's say we were going to breed the warm chicken with the standard chicken, which I've always found to be a weird mechanic, breeding chickens, since we have the egg system. You can see again 50% chance, and we got this type for an example. Although not a lot of features have been added to them yet, one other thing we got in 1.21.5 is the test blocks. We have the test instant block, and these are all called test block, but they have different things they do. Now this block indicates that it failed the test, this one indicates that it accepts it, and this logs it, this starts it. Now you might be wondering what in the world these test blocks are even about, or what kind of tests they're doing, and to be honest, I don't know a lot about it, but they're mainly intended for the developers, and they do work along structure blocks. This allows you to do a few different things, like testing structure size, and you can indicate what your test would be. Anyway, that is 20 huge 1.21.5 updates. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to press the like button. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Like the video, comment down your favorite 1.21.5 feature, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!